Mercedes haven't had the start to the season they wanted. It's been nowhere near as bad as last year, but after their race win at the end of 2022, the team expected to be fighting Red Bull this year. There are loads of reasons why that hasn't happened, and Toto Wolff has decided that the person heading their technical department is to blame. Today we're going to unwrap Mercedes' technical department shuffle, and fill you in on the whats and whys of James Allison's return, so don't go anywhere. Let's start off by laying out the backstory for this one so everything happening now makes sense. Mercedes won 8 consecutive Constructors' Championships from 2014 to 2021. James Allison joined the team in February 2017, having split with Ferrari the previous summer, and led the design group through the final 5 years of that period. In 2021, the team embarked on a transition period. That led to Mike Elliott formally taking over as technical director in July that year, with Allison becoming CTO, or Chief Technical Officer. In his new role, Allison relinquished overall control of car design and had a 3-day-a-week role that focused on strategic issues such as planning for the next F1 rules to be introduced in 2026 and other projects, including the America's Cup campaign of Mercedes' F1 partner and shareholder Ineos. Mercedes' period of success ended last season when new technical rules were introduced into F1 in an attempt to make the field closer and the racing more competitive. Mercedes chose a unique car design philosophy that differed significantly from that of other leading teams, and spent much of last year struggling for competitiveness and battling an aerodynamic phenomenon known as porpoising or bouncing. They recovered sufficiently to win the penultimate race of the season in Brazil and decided to stick with their design approach. But Wolff admitted after the first qualifying session of this season in Bahrain that they would have to abandon their philosophy due to George Russell and Lewis Hamilton finishing 6th and 7th fastest, 1.6 seconds off the pace. Wolff said, "We got it wrong last year. We thought we could fix it by sticking to this concept of car, and it didn't work out. So we just need to switch our focus onto what we believe can be the right direction and change approach." And that brings us to now. Mercedes are in the process of designing a W14B, an alternative specification of their car, and any upgrades that the team bring will presumably be aimed at the new car. It's easy to say that Mercedes' unsuccessful season in 2022 is down to Mike Elliott. After all, he was the head of the technical department for the 6 months prior to the season and the duration of the season. That's a pretty short-sighted view of how Formula 1 car design works though. When the technical regulations get overhauled, the teams know what is happening for a few years. These cars can take years to design, especially when you can't just upgrade the old car, as was the case in 2022. The rough plan for the W13, Mercedes' 2022 car, would have been decided on at some point in 2020, when James Allison was still heading the team's technical department. Mike Elliott, who took over in 2021, was just executing Allison's plan. That doesn't mean Mike isn't to blame for Mercedes' drop in form. He had decisions to make from that point that would have affected the final product. But the core of the car, the chassis and suspension, and the zero-pod idea all came from Allison originally. Elliott has been successful with the team as well. He was head of aerodynamics before becoming technical director, and was integral to the design of all Mercedes' successful cars. What I'm saying is neither of these guys are bad at their job, but both of them made mistakes that have been contributing factors in Mercedes' declining form. Nonetheless, with the team underperforming in Toto Wolff's eyes, he decided it was time for a change, and the first part of that was bringing James Allison back to the technical department on a daily basis. James Allison has returned as Mercedes' technical director, managing the day-to-day design of the car. Mike Elliott assumes the position of Chief Technical Officer, to which Allison was appointed in 2021. That means Mike will be working more long-term, looking ahead to 2026's regulation changes, as well as working on the sailing team. I think, technically, this is actually a promotion for Mike Elliott, but he isn't moving because the team are really happy with his performance. He's moving because Mercedes think James Allison can do a better job. Well, actually, the team are saying that James Allison's return to lead car design came at Mike Elliott's instigation. Either he is incredibly humble, or something is being covered up. A Mercedes spokesperson said, "Mike has led a review of our technical organization to ensure we have the right structure to deliver sustainable success in the future. We're focused on building the best racing car, and building the best team to develop that car, with everybody playing to their greatest strengths in the organization." Mercedes team principal and chief executive officer Toto Wolff endorsed the reshuffle. Wolff said, "Mike's assessment was, and the introspection is really admirable, that with James we have a gladiator on the field, and the troops are going to go through the fire for him and with him. Elliott will focus on developing the organisation going forward, Wolff added. Maybe Mike Elliott just really loves sailing, I don't know. Considering Mercedes' performance and all the talk about the team needing to change, this shuffling of the technical team feels like it's happened because of the pressure from Toto Wolff and his bosses. But that isn't the way the team wants to describe it, so we'll just have to trust them. Speaking on the latest edition of the F1 Nation podcast, Allison spoke about the changes and why they've been made now, and whether he needed more persuading to return to what is a very demanding role within the Mercedes F1 garage. "I'm missing it," Allison said. "No, we just had a bit of an examining of our own navels here in Brackley, and between Mike and I, we concluded that the pair of us can cover the ground reasonably well. But perhaps I was better suited to the short-term fighting of a championship with the car, and that he was the much better chess player of the pair of us, and he would be better suited to doing the job I was doing as a CTO previously. We jiggled it about and came up with something that we think is a better fighting machine overall." Apparently, the reason James took on the role of CTO in the first place was because he wanted to be based in England more instead of away with the team for over half the year. He had some excellent personal reasons for wanting to be back in England back in 2021. His return to his old role as technical director means things must have improved for him at home, which is great to hear. So what does this change of positions mean for Mercedes' season? Is James Allison's influence on the car's design going to allow the team to fight Red Bull this season? Well, in short, no. The longer answer is still no, but it ends in a but, and I'll explain why. We all know by now that the team are in the process of redesigning their car. Designing a Formula 1 car takes a long time. Last year, Red Bull and Ferrari switched their focus to their 2023 cars in the summer, slightly less than halfway through the season. Mercedes aren't going to be able to turn up to Baku with a brand spanking new car that can challenge Red Bull. They might have upgrades that can help them challenge against Aston Martin, but gaining the second or so a lap they need to fight Red Bull isn't going to happen. At the moment, they're splitting their development budget for the year between the current car and the new car. For example, if Red Bull have £10 million of their budget allocated for development before the summer break, they'll spend £10 million of that on the current car. If Mercedes have £10 million to spend, they might spend £5 million on the current car, and the other £5 million on the new car they're designing. James Allison may very well be a better engineer for the development battle of a Formula 1 season, but if he has half the budget of his competitors, because half of it is being spent on next year's car, he isn't going to be able to get the W14 fast enough to fight Red Bull. The W14 will evolve this season. It will change towards something that resembles next year's car, but it won't change enough to fight Red Bull due to the splitting of resources. Mercedes will perform better than they would have this season if Mike Elliott had stayed as technical director though. Mercedes have made the change because they believe that James Allison is the better car designer of the two engineers, and that he is the one that will make the biggest difference this season and next season. By the sounds of things, he's been busy since coming back. The 55-year-old said the W14 was constantly evolving, but refused to state what the team's target was. "The flow of new parts has already happened," he said. "You pretty much have a different car every weekend you take it racing. Sometimes it's a few more parts, sometimes it's a few fewer. But we've had new things for each of the races, and Baku won't be any exception. You are constrained by cost caps and stuff eventually, but we're at a stage of the season where there's still plenty of firepower there to keep putting lap time on the car weekend by weekend." The team might be avoiding saying that they think James Allison can design a better car than Mike Elliott, but that is the reason the swap has happened. It doesn't get Mercedes into title contention this year, but next year, he might be able to push the team into a title battle. What do you think of the Mike Elliott and James Allison swap? Will he be able to design a new concept car that's capable of battling Red Bull? Let us know your predictions in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.